Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cocktails and Rocktails with me, your most notorious groupie, Alice Rouse, author of We've Got Tonight, The Life and Times of Notorious Groupie Me, and these other little books right here. I also do have merchandise. I have Patreon, cocktail of the day, drink beer of the day. Go down. It's all down in the description where you can get all my books, everything. There's a lot of stuff happening down there in a good way. And speaking of a good way, thank you guys for making this such an amazing community. I cannot even tell you how thankful I am for all the love and support, for everybody who is enjoying a whole different side to the groupie experience, because we all know it's been so one-sided and boxed up. That thank you guys for all the love and support, for coming on this journey with me. There's so much more to come, so many things happening here in the near future. So thank you guys so much. I will never, ever be able to really, truly express my gratitude. And today on Cocktails and Rocktails, we are going to talk about, we're going to talk about another episode of a show that I saw called Breaking the Band. This is an older episode. Not a lot of people see it. I didn't have it. It's from the same line that stole my Bon Jovi poker story and stuff. So I recently finally saw the one about The Who. So you know I've got something to say about that. Alright guys, and because I got something to say about that, we are going to have a limoncello sunrise. I made this for another one, but we're going to finish drinking it right here because why not? We've heard tequila sunrise, Malibu sunrise. Well, let's give the limoncello a little. And I used this little limoncello right here. Had to bring this in from out of state because many bottles of liquor are illegal in the state of Utah, like owning your own liquor store is. Life behind the Zion curtain. All right, everybody, grab your sunrises, kick up your feet, and let's have a little cocktails and rocktails. Cheers, big ears. That is so good, and I'm not the biggest limoncello fan, but the grenadine and the orange juice really set that, because limoncello to me is the Jaeger of lemons. Definitely would have her, because this is a cream limoncello too, a creme. So definitely would rather swallow this cream than Kip Wingers. So true. All right, you guys. And so we are going to talk about this Breaking the Band, The Who. Now, let's get it started, because what a lot of people don't realize is that John actually started The Who. Him and Pete and then Roger and everybody. I mean, it was just kind of, John was the original guiding member of The Who. And this is kind of really left out because it drives me nuts. John, this whole thing is about Pete and Roger, and the fights that Pete and Roger had. Pete and Roger this, Pete and Roger that. Pete and Roger are the gods of The Who. In reality, who's the real sound of The Who? That do-do-do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do. It's the bass. It's John. John saw where he wanted this band to go. He could have joined Led Zeppelin, but he was like, no, thank you. I've got my own thing. Because he knew where he was meant to be. And I always say this about John. And if you've watched the video for Old Red Wine, that first 5 seconds of the video, when he walks into the room of rehearsals, everybody stops and stares because he was larger than life. He was a larger than life musician, not just a bass guitarist. In my opinion, the best bass guitarist we will see in our lifetime, but one of the best musicians. So it kind of drives me nuts that he always gets pushed to the back end of the story. You know, the only time they really put any thought in, and there was like this much thought, very, very minuscule, was when they talked about when he passed in Las Vegas, which of course they got wrong and they seriously just sort of brushed over. At least they didn't call me a prostitute like Brian did in the other one, Breaking the Bad, which that's settled. So that kind of, the fact that they stick with the overdone, very little educated, no research version of what they read online. Like, you can tell the producers of this show really didn't do a whole lot of research. And part of that is because there was only probably about two people that actually one worked with that actually worked with the Who, knew the Who, and one was Rabbit, and one was what did he? I think he was a tour manager for a while. I have to look at his name again because I forgot. Because as you get older, life changes. Your brain gets a little. And Alzheimer's does run in my family. But so they only had two people. Everybody else that was talking about the band was a general perspective. Mental health expert. Oh, rock and roll journalist. This biographer of the Who, which we all know about. Paul Reese's book that was not researched. Because he never even came to me to find out how John and I met. So this was another one of those half-assed, cream puff, barely researched, didn't really understand the dynamic of the Who. Because had they known the dynamic, they would have seen that the struggle between Pete and Roger wasn't the real struggle. That it was Pete who has come out after John's passing and said, I'm glad he's gone because now I don't have to basically live in his shadow. He doesn't have to cater to his playing because John was actually the backbone sound of the Who. And he was basically the lead bassist, lead guitarist. So that's why when you watch the Who play, you see Pete always watching to see what John is going to do because John's just lost in his own little world. So Pete's got to follow up him. So I can understand that dynamic, why Pete would get, but he was literally playing second fiddle to John. So they miss this whole dynamic. They miss this whole thing. Like I said, it's just a cream puff piece. It's just bullshit that they kind of found a few articles online, wrote something for Dee Snider to say, and I don't know how Dee Snider can participate in these episodes because he narrates them all. I don't know how he can participate in this because Dee Snider is a very intelligent, decent, wonderful human being. I've never met him, but there's nothing bad I've ever heard about Dee Snider. He stands up for the right things at the right times. So some of the things he's read in some of these, I've been like, how much are they paying you for that to come out your mouth? Because again, some of the things he was reading, you could tell it was just like, oh, he phoned that shit in because he knows better on some of the things he's reading. So he must just get paid to read the scripted, but you can tell these producers, they don't do a lot of research. They didn't bring a lot of people in that actually knew them, because I don't know why. So that kind of made me mad that they just went with that same old puff piece, bullshit, over and over and over. Very shallow dynamic of the Who. Because like I said, it pushes John to the back. And then they were talking about Roger. Now this is what one of the little things we are going to dispel about Roger. He says, oh, I never did drugs. I, got married. I settled down. Well, again, this glorifies Roger that he settled down with Heather, and him and Heather have been married forever. And that is awesome. Total respect for their marriage and their dynamic, because it is their marriage and their marriage alone, and for her and him to decide what their dynamic is. So Roger, first of all, he settled down so that they could have kids. He told her, I'm not going to be faithful to you. I'm a rock singer. Cool. She accepted his 2 daughters that he had with groupies on the road and has been a wonderful wife and mother and human being. So much respect to her and to their marriage, because it is what they make it, and they've made it really, really great on their own terms. And for them to kind of brush over as glorifying Roger as his faithful husband and stuff, I think really does a disservice to the strength and grace that Heather has and what they've built their marriage on. Is their family, their dynamic, and what they're cool with. And I have total respect for that. So they kind of shut Roger into this golden god. He's so perfect. He was the good boy out of the band. He doesn't do drugs. And the fuck he doesn't do drugs. He does drugs. Not heavy drugs, not crazy drugs. He's a pot smoker, but will not smoke pot before noon because I've been around this band. I mean, you're not going to learn this from taking a picture from Roger Daltrey on the loading dock, are you? No. When you're actually deep inside with the band, because the dynamics are crazy, and we'll do another video. I do have a video on deck about the cliques on the road. So Roger does do drugs. And then when the news had broke in 2002 and I had gone to LA to hide with Cy and the band and everybody, Roger had had a root canal 2 to 3 weeks before that. Keep in mind, 2 to 3 weeks. He had a root canal. He was calling Cy in the morning asking if Cy could find any Vicodin because he had a root canal 2, 3 weeks ago and he was still in pain. Motherfucker. I had a root canal. I had 2 root canals in one day. Took a couple, prescription strength ibuprofens and bought myself a new boots because I got through the root canals. That was my reward. 2 or 3 weeks later, you're not having that much pain. And if you are, you need to go back to the dentist because your dentist did it wrong. But he does do drugs. He was a pot smoker. He might have dallied or didn't even bother with other drugs, but definitely was smoking pot back in 2002, 2003, 4, 5, everything, because I still stayed around Cy. I still was friend. I was still hanging around the mutual friends in the crowd. So Roger, and again, this is how little they research. If they had researched with the right people, they would have the full story of the Who, because that's to me a total disservice to giving you this much of a story, and especially when it glorifies certain people and pushes other ones to the back. Because, when they talk about Keith and stuff, and Keith was the problem child of the band, and he created all this drama, which he did, but there was also pretty incredible sides to him becoming, him and Cy's friendships and him and John's friendship, which was even more dynamic and problematic because they were also roommates. So again, another whole dynamic of friendship that they chose to cut out of the whole Who history that is part of their history. They cut it all the way out because, the focus has always been on Roger and Pete, because once upon a time, 40, 50 years ago, some journalists happened to focus on that, and that became part of their legacy, when their legacy is so much bigger because, like I said, and there was a dynamic between, like I said, between John and Pete, and the fact that they don't hang out off the stage. But again, this is coming to be part of that issue, will be another part of another video. So, in only having 2 people and then quote unquote experts, rock journalists or mental health experts and stuff, having that without knowing the band really, like I said, it just cheapens the quality of the show, because it really just, like I said, does a disservice to the reality of the band, so that everybody just follows along blindly. And we've heard the story before, but like I said, had they been able to bring more people in, even myself, and I don't care if I'm part of that show or not, but to really understand the true dynamic of the band, it's not just a conflict of energy between Roger and Pete. It's a conflict of energy between every single one of those members in individual dynamics and dynamics as a whole that actually make for a pretty beautiful explosion in their music that they make. So for me, leaving all this out really does not do their music justice, because all their dynamics together as a whole, individuals, it creates what became one of the biggest legendary rock bands of all time, with some pretty incredible music. So it's so limited. What else do I have? That's pretty much it. That's why I write down my notes, because sometimes as I'm going throughout the day, or I'll think of things that I recorded on my phone, so go through and I write down the notes. And yeah, these are pretty much the reasons I didn't like it. And I think that's one thing. John's first ex-wife, the first Allison, I'm the last Allison, she's the first Allison, but the first Allison once said that it always drove her nuts because they put so much emphasis just on Pete and Roger, and that for being the dynamic duo of the Who, and then put so much emphasis on Keith for being the troublemaker of the Who, the wild child, that John just kind of got pushed in the corner and forgotten about, when in reality, he was 100% the backbone of the Who. No wonder Pete's happy that he's gone, because he doesn't have to live in his shadow. Like I said, watch the video to Old Red Wine, and it'll be the first one that pops up with the actual video. And when he's walking into the room for the rehearsals that were the rehearsals for the tour in 2002, his last rehearsals with the band, he walks in the room and you see Zach Starkey's wife standing by the drum kit. You see a couple roadies, people that have known John for years and years and years and decades. And even then, they stop to watch him walk into that room. They listen to what he's doing. Pete has to keep up with what John's doing to keep that sound of The Who. It's not the same when you see him live. And people who have seen The Who live with John can tell you that. And that's what's really sad, because like I said, each individual dynamic, they make up the whole history of The Who. They make up the sound. They make up the energy. It's not just about Roger and Pete. And quit glorifying these motherfuckers. Pete is an incredible poet. He's an incredible guitar player. He's an incredible musician. And I think he's a good person. I have nothing against Pete at all. This is just from my observation, from where I stood on John's side of the stage, which was a whole world apart from his side of the stage where Alan Rogan and everybody stood. I stood with Cy. It was two totally different worlds on each side of those stages. Like I said, I think Pete's an incredible musician. I think he's an incredible poet, an incredible songwriter. I have respect for him as a person. He says what he wants. He lets his emotions out there, which is cool. Not a lot of people do. Pete always has. So I have a lot of respect for Pete. Nothing against him at all. I just know the dynamic that I saw watching them, and still see what I'm watching live stuff of The Who. When, at iBash in Boulder, Colorado, when I'd see John on his solo tours, when I'd see him play special gigs in London, stuff like that. So this is just kind of my opinion, that John deserves more credit, and they need to do a lot more research and really kind of bring the whole band alive, not just Pete and Roger. Don't shove everybody to the side and pigeonhole them, because each one was so much more deeper than what these guys portrayed. But of course, we know how I feel about the TV company that makes these Breaking the Bands. They're all half-assed, not even half-assed. Like half-assed would actually be them putting a lot of effort into these episodes. They're all just puff pieces. Maybe someone did about 5 minutes of research, wrote something, threw some shit together, called it good. They phoned it in, basically. So, don't like it for those reasons. But alright, guys, go watch these things. I believe it's on Pluto TV right now, where you can also find the Secret Lives of Women, the groupie ones where I talk about. This is all on Pluto TV currently. So if you have Pluto TV, it's a free streaming service. Just go to their search and you can go Breaking the Band, The Who. Come right up, watch it, watch that Secret Lives of Groupies, stuff like that. So, because there is an after story to that last episode of those chicks. Psycho. I had to block them. So, but anyway, I don't give a fuck about those girls. But anyway, so yeah, go watch these. Tell me what you guys think. Like I said, it's on Pluto TV. If I can, I'll put the link down there. Sometimes I cannot put the link down there. But it's pretty weak. I think anybody who knows The who is a fan of The who's worked with The who's been around The Who since they were kids, even new fans of The Who, I think they can really see when they watch this that it's just really super watered down. Like if you put that much, that's how much effort went into this episode. So, all right, you guys. Thank you again for all the love and support. Hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Podcast is coming. I just have to figure it all out. I'm doing this all on my own. Kristen will be a part of it, but I've got to do all the legwork. So my neighbor actually does podcasts, does some true crime podcasts, is going to be doing music podcasts. So he's going to help me get everything together so that we can get that going. And it will be a phone-in podcast, you guys, because I really want to interact with you guys and more than just the comments. So excited for it. All right, guys. Thank you again for all the love and support, all the great ideas. Any more ideas? Go down in that description. You are in the comments. Tell me your ideas because you know I 100% take your ideas. We've got a lot of really cool people here. All right, guys. While you're down there in that description, don't forget to tittle about, hit my like button, hit my bells. We'll see you next time on Cocktails and Rocktails. Cheers, big ears.